and welcome to AJ Paints. I'm Andy. In this video I'll show you how to speed paint a Hellfont, another of the adversaries from Maladum, the board game from Battle Systems. The Hellfont is a creature made by stitching together parts of other beasts with a tank of mystical fluid on its back. I really love the purples and the pinks in this original artwork, and that's how I decided to start the base coat for my miniature here. As you can see, I've kicked off with a really dark blue. This is a Vallejo dark blue. I'm painting that all over the bottom. I'm not being very careful with this, to be honest, and it's going on pretty thick, but I'm taking this for all of the shadow areas. On the top, I picked out a pink colour. That's dark hot pink. It's a Pro Acryl colour from Pro Acryl and Rogue Hobbies. And again, I'm slapping this on, really chucking it on there and blending it with the blue, as you can see, just coming in there. The purple in between looks a little bit greyish, so I just kept putting more hot pink on until I was really happy with it. So over that really interesting base layer, I want to start to pick up my highlights, and I'm using Vallejo Ice Yellow for this. I'm going to dry brush it on, so just using my normal dry brush. It's a cheap makeup brush from Amazon. It's got a thick end and a thinner end if I need to get into some detail. I'm focusing on the top of the miniature first, but not putting it on too heavily. I want to build up this colour carefully because I don't want to lose any of that lovely pink and blue that I've got underneath. I'm focusing it on the top because that's where all the light would fall on the miniature, not putting anything in the shadows underneath. And eventually I'll start to pick out some areas like the face and the tank a little bit more. You can see here using the smaller end of the brush to really build up the lighter colour right on the top there. All this work is really just setting up for the colours which are going to go over the top, and I'm planning to use contrast paints or inks to pick out the base colours. The first one being this Blood Angels Red, and I'm going to do all the gums and the real inside stuff on the mouth, so the tongue and bits on the insides of the cheeks as well that you can see poking through that torn skin on the head. You need to be careful when you're doing this that you don't put the red colour where you don't want it. It's a very strong colour. I'm using quite a big brush, but it has got a fine point. It's a cheap brush, again a couple of pounds, this one from the range here in the UK, but it's kept its point for a few months now, and I've done all of my Maladum minis with it so far. Now moving into the skin areas, I'm going to start off with a flesh colour. I've watered this down. The red contrast paint I used almost straight from the pot, just a little bit of water, but this is quite thinned down. You can see it's going on, and really the colours only appearing in the shadow areas. The highlights are staying really quite bright, and I'm happy with that. I can always go back over and work into it again if I want to. The sections where the skin, the stretched skin, is pierced by bone here near the tank, I want to make that look a bit angry and a little bit wounded, so a thinned down go over again with that red contrast paint really works nicely here. As we've got lots of rotten old flesh on this monster, Plague Bearer flesh seemed like a good choice, and I'm picking out sections here. I'm looking for anything that's separated by stitches, because that's telling me that that's part from a different creature. So the top of the shoulder there is a good part to start with, and then I'm just working up to the stitches on the bottom of this tentacle, leaving another little bit clear. Then moving into another colour. This was really from a reference from the original artwork, that snakebite leather, that sort of yellowish brownish colour, and this time on the opposite shoulder, and then finding some more sections around the model, again separated by those stitches that I can just brush in. This is watered down again, so I can see the blue and the highlight colour coming through from underneath. Back in with the Gunnerman flesh. This time we're looking at putting it over the blue areas at the bottom, so it looks a bit different to the stuff on the top. I'm putting it on a little bit thicker than I did on the top one. You can see I'm sort of slopping it on there, and it works really nicely with that blue undertone. Could leave the teeth and the bones as they are. That ice yellow gives a nice highlight colour, but I'm just coming in with this skeleton horde to tint them a little bit. So you can see here, picking out the sort of teeth bits as they hold onto the tank, and I've already done the teeth on the front. Black Templar is the last of the contrast paints that I'm using here, and that's going on the pipe that comes out from the tank and down into the Hellfont's head, so it can spew out all that nasty liquid onto your party. And there we go. If you want to use that for reference, that's how I split my colours up. I haven't done the rest of the tank yet, but that's all the skin completed. For the tank, I'm switching to inks, not because I think they're better particularly, I just haven't got a really nice green contrast paint. So I'm using the normal green just on the top, again going on quite thin, but I'll build that up, and the more I put on, the greener it gets. And once I've done all the green, built all the that main colour up on the top of the tank, I'll start to work in with some yellow down the sides, just to try to make it glow a little bit more, and it also makes it look a little bit more sickly and a little bit more magical. The last step here, as always with my Maladum minis, is to get a base colour on it. I never do a fancy base for them. I think they look great, and the terrain that they sit on also looks great. They don't need any special base work. The only thing with this miniature is it's really tricky to get inside and get all that base detail in. I got my paint really, really thin, really wet, and just did 2 or 3 coats very carefully. And there we are, all complete. This hasn't had a layer of varnish on yet, but I might not bother. I think it looks pretty good. I'm really pleased with the way the blue and the pink undercoating really added to all the colours, that sort of bruised and rotten colours on the flesh. Much nicer than if I'd just used the contrast paints on their own. You can see here, compared to one that I spent a long time layering and painting up, I think it looks good. So this is my layered one. I'm going to look at this in a future video. This took about 3 times longer than the other one. You can see I've spent a lot of time on the tank and blending in the flesh, but that's a story for another time. If you've got this far, I thank you for watching. Please leave a comment, subscribe if you can, give me a like as well, it would be amazing, and I'll catch you next time.